Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Land Use Committee meeting of the City of Newton City Council. My name is Rick Lipoff. I'm the chair of the committee. This is being audio and video recorded. Present on the committee at the beginning, myself, the vice chair, Andrea Kelly. In the chamber, we have councilors Tariq Lucas and Alicia Bowman. And additionally at home, we have, I did see Maria Greenberg. We have other counselors here. I see Pam Wright and Mark Laredo. And I hear Counselor Markowitz is here. On my screen down here where I'll be looking tonight, I can't see all of the names. The list is long and we can't see most of them. So thank you for the help in letting me know what other counselors are here. Am I missing anybody else for counselors? We've got everybody. From the Law Department, we have Jonah Temple. And from Planning, we should have Katie Wewell and Kat Kemet and Michael Gleba and Alisa Sandoval. Okay, I think I have everybody. All right, the first item of the night, and there are three of them that are related here, but we'll take them one at a time. 197-23, Terrence Morris request to amend conditions with special permit within special permit 39522 at 136-144 Hancock Street. Mr. Morris is not here tonight. He is a Little League coach, and he's got some playoffs going on, and I don't blame him for being there for the kids. Why don't we go to planning, and planning, we can do an overall discussion of the three and then take them individually because they are different in their characteristics. Who wishes to tee this up? Hold on one second. Can you hold on one second? How do we turn this on? Yeah. Do you know about this? No. This over here. Did they not show you? No. They didn't show me either. This is, yeah, we just don't have any sound here, Miss Wewell. Hold on a second. We got to turn the sound bar on. And I don't know. Do you see a? Boy, they didn't teach it, did they, Scott? Is there a? There may be a button down here.
I do remember Dominic saying there was a button.
Miss Wewell, can you speak? Nope. I don't know if you want to screw around with it. Say something else, Miss Wewell. Unbelievable. Yeah, call Carol.
Is it anything underneath the? No, I was thinking under here.
It's not working. Okay. No, I don't think it's on the sound bar. On the sound bar, I think it is. I think it's somewhere over here. I thought this was it. What is this?
It's not the.
What's this thing? Don't screw around. Is it PC laptop music? This works what?
Nope.
Don't touch anything. Let's just wait and see. I can't do this. This
This
is
says
JBL.
JBL. This says JBL too. This has got to be it right here.
Yeah. Katie speak? No.
I can hear you, but only through the.
There's a green light on right now. Oh, go ahead.
Speak. Katie, say something. Can't even hear me. Tell Katie she does.
Katie, can you say something?
Yes, can you hear me?
No.
No. Not through the big speaker.
Is everything plugged in?
We don't want to touch that.
You don't know what you're touching then.
There was a switch underneath the desk or something.
I know, but that.
Katie's the big key. We make something internal.
It knocks everything.
Katie, one of your siblings is the computer. Do you want to try rebooting? No,
Connecting to this?
she just put on in the chat.
I mean, this says JBL and that's JBL.
No, it's on. It's on. I see the lights. Can you guys hear us, Katie? Katie, can you hear us? Why did this ever be changed?
Looked around, I said, I'm not gonna sit in a conference, I'm just gonna go home.
Yeah.
But we
Exactly
got-
what I remember. Rick went next door with his laptop. Chris and I drove home and got back on the meeting on Zoom.
Hold on. Andrea, can you hear me?
We
Can
can-
you hear me?
Great. Okay. Yeah,
Yay!
we're all set. We're all set.
I hope they just remember which button they switched.
I was gonna say, write down what you did and stick it on the monitor over there.
Okay, we're good to go. I don't know what you did, but remember what you did. Okay. It's
All right.
loud.
Good job, Scott.
How do we turn this didn't turn it down by me turning this down. Is there a Okay, stop. Say something at home.
Hello.
We've been joined by Counselor Leary too.
Yeah, we're just going to leave it
Yes,
there.
good evening.
Okay. Counselor Leary is here as well. Thank you very much. Sorry for the delay, a little technical difficulty. All right. Planning, please, let's speak about these 3 items.
Yes, so I do have a presentation. It condenses sort of all of them, but perhaps we can start with sort of the largest project on this list, sort of see, get the committee's feedback so I don't take up 20 minutes talking about the same thing for each project. That's sort of what I was thinking. Is that okay, Mr. Chair?
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Okay. let me just make this larger. I haven't done this in a while. Okay, so we have 3 petitions, all very similar. 197-23 is for 136-144 Hancock Street. That is the one I will focus this first part of my presentation on. So just to refamiliarize everyone, this is an illustrative site plan of the project, or a landscaping plan. So this project was approved, I believe, in 2022 for 4 buildings on site with 16 dwelling units. There's about 58,000 square feet of land in this site. So there was also rezoning from single residence 3 to MR2. The site is within the Auburndale Historic District. The approved project consists of 27 parking stalls. Like I said earlier, there are 4 buildings on site. 2 of those are townhomes with 4 units total. There is the Barton House, which you saw earlier on the prior slide, with 5 units. That has an existing basement with only living area, but is associated with surface parking. And then the Walker House has a ground floor garage for 6 cars. The basement is partially exposed. So you could see that, I think, on this first slide. You can see how it slopes downwards to that access for parking. So the applicant submitted a request to alter 2 conditions within the approved special permit. So the first one has to do with MAAB requirements for the units. After conferring with Inspectional Services, Attorney Temple and I learned that this condition doesn't quite apply to this project. So due to the number of units, I believe it only applies to 20 or more units. So we are supportive of eliminating this condition and just letting the building code prevail. Because I believe they would be required to comply with group 2 units. And then the second alteration is with the vibration control condition, which is part of the standard conditions for special permits, depending on the size of the project, whether there's any excavation. So they've requested to remove the 250-foot radius that had been worked into the condition based off of state guidelines for blasting. So, you know, blasting and excavation are not the same thing. It was just sort of what informed the condition and seemed most similar. So with this, we do think there is further discussion required for this condition. You'll see this on this slide is the radius for 250 feet. So it does include, you know, several properties in the area. In conferring with Attorney Temple and thinking, maybe perhaps reducing it to direct abutters is too few, because it would only be 1 or 2 properties in that radius. So we're going to explore reducing, the radius in the sort of less stringent vibration control condition, where we received the direction to incorporate that for projects with 25 units or less. So it differs from, a heavier condition in that there is no mitigation fund associated with this condition with 25 units. So we believe that 150 feet could be incorporated instead of 250 on projects of this size going forward. But we are also interested in the directive of the committee. So that is all I have for Hancock, but I'm happy to go further, or we can pick it back up after the committee has had some time to deliberate. Thank you.
Right, why don't we deliberate a little bit on what we're doing here, and then we can deal with that and go on to the other 2. To my colleagues, what we're doing here is we made a new rule, and sometimes we get it right, and sometimes it can It can be amended to be better. And what this attorney is bringing forward is the distance that we have allotted here for notification for under 25 seems to be a little far-reaching, and it can be case-specific as well. You know, we're going to look at River Street where there's no digging. It's all on foundation, on slab. And then there are others like 71 Com Ave we're going to get to where they're going to do some more digging, and we may want to go a little further. So, but nevertheless, even though each one can be a little different, we want to discuss, is this 250 feet too far-reaching? The planning department has looked at these three and others and feels that 150 may be more reasonable when the projects are smaller. Remember, the blasting is separate from this. The blasting will always be 250, and it's regulated by the state. This is our vibration, and for smaller projects to ask the petitioner to go to 30, 40, 50 homes and do what they need to do to map them and to make sure they're not doing anything when they may not be causing those kind of vibrations at all, may be unreasonable. This is our discussion. Councilor Laredo?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So, have we heard from any professionals in this area to give us some guidance here?
Ms. Wewell?
I would defer to the petitioner on whether they've had a professional inform this request. I don't think on the city side, we have engaged any professionals.
I must say, I don't know how we can make a judgment call here, one way or the other, without getting some professional guidance as to what potential harm could be caused from vibrations. And I mean, we're sitting here creating essentially a standard and being asked to change that standard without any guidance whatsoever. And that makes no sense to me.
Well, let's hear from Mr. Oliveri, who's got his hand up, who is the petitioner, and we'll see what he's got. Mr. Oliveri?
Yeah, Councilor Laredo, I appreciate everyone's time as always, and I wish I could be in the chamber this evening, but I not able to do that. But Councilor Laredo, I appreciate you bringing up the really the science of this, and that's one thing that I was going to ask Katie about. But before I get there, I think there's a little bit of history that goes along with this and where this ordinance really came from, or why not necessarily the ordinance, but the language was inserted. And I think it goes back to the projects at Trio and also Sunrise, the senior living. And after those projects, there were some complaints from the neighborhood of potential issues or vibrations. And then this language has worked itself into the council order. But if you look at those projects in the scope of those projects, they were driving pile and they were doing things that were well beyond what any of these three projects that we're discussing tonight are going to be, what the scope of work is. I mean, in theory, all three of these projects are residential projects. There will be no blasting. There will be no pile driving. And there will be limited vibrations that are created from this site or these sites in general. And I was going to ask Katie the question of, where did the 150 feet, or the planning department, where did the 150 feet come from, and how is that just, we feel that that's the new number that should be used? Well, with me tonight is a seismologist and geologist that specializes on this matter. His name is Richard Grohl. He's here. He can speak to his resume, his experience, and who he is, and really provide guidance to this conversation, because what we're doing in all three of these projects is there will be no greater vibration on these projects than any other construction project that is a single family property in the city of Newton, or a by right two-family in the city of Newton, or as it's been described to me, if the city of Newton was repaving a road in the city, that same vibration, in some cases, repaving a road in the city of Newton would cause more vibrations than any of these three sites in the scope of work. So I'm going to pass it off to Richard
And
Grohl.
before you do, Mr. Oliveri, Mr. Chair, I very much appreciate the petitioner's hired an expert, okay? Who's going to advocate, presumably with professional qualifications, but advocating for Mr. Oliveri, which is fine. And he may have the right standard, but why aren't we getting our own independent experts, whether we go to design review committee, which has numerous experts, as Councilor Kelly knows, or other professionals to give us guidance here? I'm not comfortable. I don't care how well qualified Mr. Oliveri's expert is. I'm not comfortable one way or the other relying on what that individual has to say. I want an independent person to give us guidance. It may be, Mr. Oliveri, that you're 100% right. You're 100% right, that the standard we've crafted is inappropriate. I don't know. But Mr. Chair, this is just, as far as I'm concerned, this whole discussion is premature until we get some expertise, independent expertise that we hire, we pay for, and so therefore doesn't have an allegiance to anyone. And experts are great. They're used in litigation all the time. You can find experts on either side of an issue for a lot of things, and there's a reason for that. And again, I'm not impugning the qualifications or skill set of Mr. Oliveri's expert, but it seems to me if we're crafting city policy, the city's planning department has an obligation to go out there and get its own independent judgment who can give us professional guidance here. And I'm not prepared to vote for anything absent that guidance. Thank you.
Great, thank you. I don't disagree that it's always a good thing for us to get an independent. Unfortunately, I think we blew it here because with single-family homes, with tear-downs, we don't have this. This was born out of larger projects, and when it came in front of us to talk about, we had to say, well, what are we going to do with smaller projects? And I think this is a process to get this right. Where we will end, it may be 150, it may be 250, it may be 0. We did a dumb thing here. But we've got to hear all parties, we've got to get all information. And Mr. Oliveri, I would like to hear from your seismologist tonight.
That would be great. So, and I can say one thing, and I can understand Councilor Laredo's point, but where the science is the reality. That it's I'm a man of science. I believe in it, and if the numbers and the science that he's going to speak to is accurate, I don't think it'll change from expert to expert. That's my opinion.
And you would hope that experts believe in their license and their integrity and wouldn't be an advocate, but the city should. One of the problems is getting experts like this costs money for the city, and we'll be asking the planning department to pay some money to do something like this, and maybe we'll have to do that. Mr. Oliveri, let's hear from your seismologist.
Richard, you're having some audio issues.
I don't see him, but I don't see
He's
him.
he's there, but he's having some audio issues. Let me see if I can.
It may be an issue with his computer because he's not muted.
Right. Let me see if I can patch him in somehow. All right, I'm gonna patch him in. I know this is very archaic here, but you want to speak, Richard, and see if everyone can hear you? Can everyone hear him?
No.
Mr. Oliveri, there's also a call-in number on the agenda. Perhaps he could call in that way.
Let me see if that'll work.
Okay, while he's doing that, I'll take. Yep, we can hear you.
All
You can
right,
hear me
good.
now?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, are you hearing me through your computers or is it through the phone?
Through the computer.
Okay. My name is Richard J. Grohl. My company is Richard J. Grohl Technical Services out of Hollis, New Hampshire. I have been employed as a seismologist since 1989. My training is I have a bachelor's degree in geology and a master's degree in earth science from the California University of Pennsylvania. I serve as an expert witness in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for cases of structural response and damage from surface mine blasting and other vibratory sources. I perform pre-blast and pre-construction inspections, seismic monitoring, and damage claim investigations. I have been doing so as a consultant on my own since 1996. And I serve the blasting, the construction, and insurance industries. I've reviewed the 3 sites that are here and how they are going to be developed. None of these sites currently, as they're proposed to be developed or redeveloped, will involve anything that would be vibrocentric, like paving rollers or hammers, blasting, anything that employs the use of mechanical agitation to perform useful work. The projects will involve digging. They will involve normal delivery activities and demolition activities, which are common amongst all projects where they've taken down or modified a building and reconstructed and placed new buildings. The levels of vibration that common construction equipment like excavators, trucks, things of that nature produce is approximately 10% or less of the vibration thresholds established by the Commonwealth of Massachusetts for blasting. These limits are for impulsive vibration and are fairly high. The limit that was mentioned in the vibration specifications for vibration monitoring was 0.5 inch per second. At no time will any of the equipment that's proposed to be used at the site produce 10% of that at the nearest structure. It might produce it on the property, but it will not, those levels would not escape the property simply because there's just not enough energy being focused into the ground from the implements. The implements are being used for above ground applications such as demolition of structures, disposal of structural materials, and the delivery of new construction materials and their construction, their assembly. As far as the use of any kind of a vibration fund, so to speak, it's somewhat redundant because a contractor who performs any kind of work has to carry insurance. And in order to get a building permit, I believe you would even have to show proof of insurance in the city. Basically, that's something that any builder has to show when they're starting work anywhere, is that they're insured. So having a separate insurance fund for it is kind of redundant.
Excuse me, sir. Can I interrupt you for a second? Ms.
Yes.
Wewell, at this level, there is no fund, correct?
I believe there is because these orders predated when the committee last discussed this.
So
that
we
could
did
also be.
okay. We did take the fund away for these smaller ones, did we not, or did we reduce the size of the fund?
We took away the fund for projects less than 25 units, but the orders that govern these projects may still have the fund in them due to the timing of crafting the order. It may have preceded that decision. So we could also take a look at that tonight too, if the committee desires.
We would need to, yes. Okay. Sorry, sir. Go on. Are you done, or you have a little more? Go ahead.
Well, just I wanted to add that as far as vibration monitoring is concerned, vibration monitoring for things that produce by design vibrations such as hammers, rollers, pilers, things of that nature would make sense. However, for just day-to-day construction activity, with the exception of when somebody complains about vibration somewhere and we take an instrument out to just see if there's anything to be concerned about, rarely is there a condition imposed where you must do vibration monitoring just for traffic and general construction operations like that which are personnel are handling tools, things of that nature. So as far as vibration monitoring is concerned, it would also be kind of overkill to impose it for projects that don't employ vibration specific machinery.
Okay, thank you very much. I appreciate your input. All right, Ms. Wewell, can you speak to the necessity and or the possibility of getting our own seismologist? What do you call it? Seismologist. Seismologist. Okay, I don't use that word every day. Go ahead, Ms. Wewell.
That I can't speak to right now. I'd have to go back, I think, to leadership. I don't know if Attorney Temple has any input on that.
No, I mean, that's not something I've been a part of discussions regarding. We would have to kind of speak with other folks.
Okay, well, if the majority of the committee deems that necessary, then we'll have to take that further, but that's a committee decision. Councilor Markowitz?
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, on the heels of all of this, I have to say that, I mean, I appreciate that the petitioner has brought in an expert to provide this testimony. I think it is helpful, but I'm stepping back from this a little bit and saying, we've talked about and we like to write conditions that are sort of consistent, and to the extent that we can apply them across multiple projects, it's useful. This makes me think back to the 250, the 150 feet, the number of units. There's a number of factors in here, and I'd like to see something worked offline, I guess, that comes back and, kind of like we did for some of the life sciences things. We went off and we actually did a little work and figured out what made sense, and that was done collaboratively, in some cases with petitioners, but also, with the planning department and whoever else. So, I'm prepared to move hold on this with a direction that, that work be completed before this come back, so that we can hear a complete explanation of what is appropriate in these circumstances, small and big, and then a recommendation as to, what we should do in this particular case. Again, I'm not against it, not opposed to it. I'm just saying I don't feel comfortable either. And particularly since, in a sense, we've approved this with a condition now, and now we're reversing it without really having a complete set of information, I think, to support this. I think there's probably some people on this call too who've experienced issues with vibration that aren't necessarily always related to pile driving, but delivery and other construction activities. I've seen it in my own neighborhood on a small project. So, it's just something that I will tell you, as this is in my ward now. I'm not comfortable with this. I would, not to say that I'd oppose a change, but I'd like more information and a little more thorough work done on this before we are in a position to vote on it.
Okay, Councilor Markowitz. Councilor Markowitz, I did speak with planning this morning, and I did recommend that we do take this up when we come back to finalize some of the standard conditions that we've been working on outside of the regular committee work, that this is something that we need to revisit and get right. I'll remind everybody of two things. We have blasting in place for larger projects. So don't be looking at this thinking, oh, we've got to keep this because of that. This was something that never existed.
I think people understand that.
Right, this never existed, and it was something that we really didn't have an issue with vibrations on smaller projects. It was an offshoot of what we were doing. So we can revisit it at that point. These are in front of us, and we can dispose, we can hold, and we can hold them until we do that work that I expect to do when we take up standard conditions on one of our off nights. Okay, Counselor Leary.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
I'm glad that we're discussing vibrations. It was a significant issue that came up during the construction of Sunrise Senior Living in Newton Corner. And we did have the Wiss Janey, I think Elster Associates, and a specialist who monitored the site for Sunrise. And they use like the U.S. Bureau of Mines standard, I guess it's the most commonly accepted criterion. But it really did pick my interest in terms of learning more about it, because there really was very little expertise in the city. So we had to really rely on Sunrise's expert for that. But people did complain about damage to their property. It was quite a significant issue. And I also believe that that Washington Place had a liaison committee that also looked into vibrations.
Once again,
And
those
then
are
I
both.
understand that, you're living next to the Mass Pike and the commuter rail and older homes, and depending on the type of soil, there's a lot of variables that can whether or not a structure will be damaged by vibrations. I would like to learn more about it, and I think I would support. I'm not on this committee, but I certainly would be. I think it's a good idea to hold this for us to be able to find out more about it.
Sure.
Thank you very much.
Sure, and I would be supportive of hold as well. I'm going to have to be a broken record. You just brought up two developments that are larger than 25 units. The focus here is under 25, and specifically these 16, 4, and I don't know how many number of units the third one is. So I just want to keep on reminding people of that. I'm happy to hold and do this in a different manner, but we shouldn't be talking about Sunrise or Trio or any of these giant ones that we have in place, 250 feet for vibration that we all agree on. Councillor Lucas?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I also think we should hold, but I just want to clarify what the petitioner is asking for and what planning is recommending, because I don't think they are the exact same. Planning, I believe, is recommending 150-foot radius, and the petitioner, I think, just wants to do direct abutters on Grove and Hancock Street, which I believe would be less than 150 feet. But
Right.
I really don't know. So if we are going to hold and this does come back, I was asked if planning could do a map of all the homes that are within 150 feet, just so that I can at least compare apples to apples. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Temple.
So obviously the committee has a right to hold this if that's what the committee chooses to do. And I also don't want to necessarily speak for Katie and planning, but I'm not sure that staff are going to be able to come back with any more information than we have tonight. We are not vibration experts, either in the law department or in the planning department. And I can't imagine we're going to go out and hire an expert before the next meeting to hold this. So I just kind of wanted to put that out there for everybody to think through.
I understand, but this petitioner is coming in with 3 special permits that we've already granted, and they're looking for something that we potentially can't give them because it's more of a policy issue than just looking at each one of these. You can hear that everybody doesn't agree on how to approach this, so I think that's an issue. They can ask. If we can't answer, so be it. So there's no next meeting. This hold is essentially a no until we figure out what we want to do. Revisiting a piece of a rule that we willy-nilly made at 250 feet before. We made that decision without professional input of a contractor to planning. I mean, people are asking us to get it now. We made those rules without experts last time. Councillor Bowman?
Thank you very much. So, and certainly 250, seems extreme now that I'm thinking about it, in that 250 is the standard for blasting.
Right.
And fairly blasting, I have been on site at the request of neighbors when blasting was happening, so I could see and feel what it's like to be for blasting. And I lived across from a site for 2.5 years that had the jackhammer working on the ledge. And I have, understanding what that feels like. And I find it hard to believe that you could have damaged 250 feet away from something that was less disruptive than blasting, right? So what I'm concerned about in this holding is we have 3 projects that we've approved some months ago, is, in the process that we're holding these projects up, I guess. I mean, I guess the petitioner could go forward and try to comply with the items that were there. One suggestion I would make is, at the very least, if any of these projects have a requirement for having the reserve fund that we've subsequently taken out of, is that my understanding, is at least one of the projects has a reserve fund, that we could go ahead and apply the new standards that we've taken out of it since those projects. That certainly should be on the table.
That is something we could do without any experts. I think that's a good idea, Councilor Bowman. Ms. Wewell, Councilor Bowman just said, one of the projects, do we know, or Mr. Oliveri, you would probably know, how many of these projects have we put upon you a fund that should no longer be put upon you now that we've changed that?
I believe all 3. And I do want to mention one thing. In there was comments about the amount of units that are in each one of these projects, not these, but a threshold of units. It really should be looked upon as scope. That's the important piece of this. If there is blasting, there's obviously 250 feet, but what is the scope of the work? Because, as I mentioned earlier, the construction on all 3 of these projects is, or would be, equivalent to someone tearing down a single family house and rebuilding that, or a by right 2-family being rebuilt. So if we're talking specifically about the vibrations that are being created from these sites, they're equivalent of all of those other projects that are happening in Newton, where this language is not being incorporated into the process of getting a building permit. So it's, a little bit troublesome that those things are being compared as, apples and oranges, because it's gone through a special permit process.
I hear you. Ms. Wewell, Mr. Temple, can we separate out a vote to take out of these 3 special permits the vibration fund, that we have already changed that law and don't ask for that for petitions now? Can we do that tonight?
Mr. Chair,
hold.
could I have a point of order, Mr. Chair? I don't think this item, that request is before us. It's not noticed.
It was something that Ms. Wewell brought up that she
It's
thought
not
was
noticed.
tangential.
It's not what the request is in front of us.
Mr. Temple?
Chair, give me a minute to review the agenda and I'll report back in a minute.
Okay. Yes, Councilor Bowman?
One more question I meant to ask, which was, I guess I was unaware that this vibration ordinance or language applied to projects that didn't have any excavation. I thought we were only talking about this project if there was excavation. So the River Street project, I don't recall having, it's all built on slab.
I don't know if it specifically says excavation.
Okay,
It's
that's something
construction.
certainly going forward.
Yeah,
I feel like if we're not digging, I'm not sure why, or blasting. Thank you.
Yeah. Mr. Oliveri?
Yeah, and just to give the council a little bit of context to the process. I know I mentioned process a lot at these meetings, and I'll give you time-wise, this would take, to do the full surveys, anywhere from 2 to 3 months to survey every property. That's inside, outside, videotape, record, that would cost approximately $35,000. That is $18,000 for the pre-construction, $18,000 for the post-construction. Walker Center, same time frame, 2 to 3 months to complete all the surveys. 13,000 pre-construction, 13,000 post-construction, and 106 River Street, same time period, 20,000 pre-construction, 20,000 post-construction. So you can see where this is not only challenging for a time perspective, but also for a project cost that, again, is not being imposed on any other projects in the city that are being done by right, but will emit the same amount of vibration that the projects that are being discussed this evening are.
That gives you a little more clarification, colleagues, on what this is about. That is what people blasting, doing projects with blasting or any project greater than 25 units, that's what they have to do. And what this is about is without any experts, we did this for 250 feet, just like blasting, for projects under 25 units, and it's unreasonable. And that's why Mr. Oliveri is back to us tonight on these three. It's something we just did. He's the first one we're putting this upon, and that's what this is about. Now, if you need to hold this and get our own seismologist to tell us what this gentleman just told us, I'm willing to do that. But this is something new that we did, that we overstepped on, overreached. And for everybody to want to hold this tonight and to, and here's the other thing. We can look at these three individually, like we started to do with Miss Wewell. We can talk about each one, and we can judge each one of these, whether we want to do neighboring properties. I think planning, but trying to do an overall rule. Some of these neighboring properties aren't enough. That's why they thought maybe the 150 would be better. But this is an interesting thing that has never come in front of us before, where the first person to test what we've done is presenting back to us if it's reasonable or not. I quickly see that it's not reasonable to have the same distance for blasting, which has that increased cost and time, is just unacceptable for these type of properties. We don't do it for single-family homes that are torn down and new foundations are built, and these aren't much different. And one of them doesn't even have any foundations, the River Street. So, colleagues, do you want to take this one at a time and see if we can deal with this? I still think that that we're going to deal with this when we have our next meeting on standard conditions, so we can dig into a little bit more. But this is in front of us right now. Mr. Temple, do you have something?
Yes, the agendas are written broadly enough that any part of the vibration control condition can be amended tonight.
Great. So we definitely can take out this fund that's not reasonable, that we already got rid of after we approved these three. And there's no reason to put it upon this petitioner if it's gone from our rules.
Chair, I've had my hand raised for a while. I don't know if Mr. Matthews can see it or you can see it there.
Same here, Mr. Chairman.
Some of us have never spoken yet.
Mr. Chair.
Excuse you all. The clerk does not have on the top of the screen, my screen, the people with their hands raised. Can you? I do not. Okay. You usually put them across the top. Okay. Thank you. All right. I'm not going to go in any order because they're not. Councilor Markowitz?
I'll let the others speak first. Again, I was going to move hold on this, but I would like to hear the other councilors, and then I'll come
Councilor
back.
Gentile? Councilor Gentile.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. One point of clarification and then just one point, and I'll be out of your hair. On clarification, my understanding is that we're talking about conditions of three different special permits that were agreed to at the time the special permit was issued. Is that not the case?
Yes, I think it was.
So I'm puzzled and I don't really want an answer. I'm not puzzled, but I guess I don't think anybody on the committee or on the council should feel bad that you're looking into this and it may take a little time. There was obviously the opportunity for the petitioner and the petitioner's counsel to bring this up months ago when these things were approved. Now, having said that, as far as these three, and I know you're going to have a broader discussion, once Council Laredo already made a suggestion that maybe the design review committee would be able to review this and weigh in on it. There's probably isn't a seismologist on the design review committee, but there are folks on there that have a tremendous amount of building experience. And it would seem logical to me, especially to save time on these three permits, that maybe you could ask our own committee of volunteers if they would take a look at this and get back to us. The only reason I'm here tonight, I know you don't want to hear about Sunrise, but it was a construction project in the city, and after the project, we all got many, many emails from abutters about damages that had occurred. And personally, this particular petition is in Ward 4, and I really don't want to have a situation where I'm hearing from, neighbors after the fact that there weren't enough protections in place. It may be difficult. I'm not suggesting that the city necessarily has to go out and hire a seismologist, but just speaking for myself, if this went in front of the design review committee and they came back to us and said, we've reviewed it, and quite honestly, it's a stretch. It's not necessary to protect our constituents in that area. I trust the folks on that committee and their expertise that I would probably be comfortable with that. So I wanted to encourage you to, think seriously about following up on Council Laredo's suggestion.
Thank you. Yeah, we can do that. We can do that. Councilor Greenberg.
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. I actually was going to ask the same question Councilor Gentel just asked. At the time of presentation of these three petitions, I'm wondering why the petitioner didn't bring up the fact that he didn't think the construction management plan for these vibration impacts was unreasonable, and we didn't discuss it then. And also I agree with his suggestion of having the design review team go through it and make suggestions for this.
Okay, great. I'm going to ask Mr. Oliveri a question in a way that I think I'm going to get the answer. Mr. Oliveri, have you ever had to do this before?
No, sir.
That's the answer. The answer isn't that he you can say, well, shame on him, but he never had to reach out to 250 feet and do this. And obviously he said, okay, let's do this. And he looked into it and found out how egregious the cost and the time is to put upon something of this size. I want to get everybody's hands down because this is going nowhere tonight, and I'm not going to waste any more time. So unless you definitely have to speak, I am willing to take a motion to hold, because this is a mess, and we're going to have planning and law figure out where we go from here.
So moved.
So
Motion to
moved.
hold.
All in favor? Aye.
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 For hold, opposed, abstentions? It's held. We're moving on. Thank you.
Excuse me, Councilor Lipoff, may I just ask one question?
Yep.
We're in the process of submitting, and I know this is maybe a planning discussion, but I just want to throw it out there. We're in the process of submitting these files for building permits. And part of the portal in the process that we will be going through requires that this be done prior to that even, Katie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, how it's incorporated into that process, but this could potentially hold up our ability to submit for a building permit. So what I'm asking is, you know, I'm throwing this out there. I'm not sure if this is the correct audience, but I'll throw it out there that this is something that can be flushed out and held subject to me, like a final contingency that this is worked through, that it doesn't impede my ability to submit this and get engineering to look at it, have ISD look at it, because that is a lengthy process. And to have this one item hang us up would be even more detrimental to the projects.
Ms. Wewell, what will it take to get some feedback on this from the Design and Review Committee?
I'm not sure. I am not familiar with them. It looks like Councilor Kelly may have some input. I haven't directly worked with them before, so I would have to find out who to reach out to and then reach out to them.
Well, we'll try to fast track this as best as possible because I understand what you're going through. Councilor Markowitz, can you put your hand down? Councilor Kelly?
Are you asking me to speak or to put my hand down again?
If you'd like to speak, speak. If not, you can put your hand down. Whatever you'd like.
I took my hand down before when you asked me to, though. I regretted it because I had my hand up and I really did want to speak.
Sure, go ahead. I'm calling on you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you. I would like to, I'll just talk right now to the Design Review Committee part, and I can't answer for them, but that is a group that is set up purely to weigh in on city-owned properties, municipal projects. You could ask them. I would probably go through Josh Morris or Alex Valcares in building department or the chairs and ask them if they would like to take a look, but it is not within their domain to weigh in on private projects like this. Councilor Greenberg mentioned DRT, and that's the design review team is very different than the design review committee. Right. And design review committee does have levels of expertise. I do not believe they have a seismologist, but however, we need to look into this more. I clearly we're not ready to to make a determination tonight, and we just chose not to. So I just wanted to say that about design review committee.
Thank you. And Ms. Wewell, I think Councilor Kelly makes a really good point. We have a lot of experts in this city, and maybe planning does a little bit of research, speaks to a lot of different people that can weigh in and give us a one-pager on some guidance here so that whether or not we bring these three back with a little bit more clarity or whether we have a special meeting in the summertime real quick to talk about this, it's something we'll need to do. Councilor Laredo, your hand is up.
It is, Mr. Chair, and I want to just follow up on a couple of things. I appreciate that we have a lot of resources in the city. Councilor Kelly is correct as to what design review committee's goal is, but within that group are lots of experts. I would respectfully suggest that Ms. Wewell doesn't have to write us a lengthy report, but I do want to know who she's talked to. All right, it's important for us if we're crafting policy to understand the sources from whence that policy comes. And, you know, Mr. Oliveri, I'm sympathetic to your plight. I think whether you get through inspectional services quicker or not is not our call, period. And I have to say that, you know, we approved 3 different projects with this language in it. And maybe the language is good, Mr. Chair, maybe it's not, but you don't know and I don't know. And we need some expertise to give us some guidance here. And I, for one, am just quite uncomfortable with this, and I'm very glad we're holding it this evening. Thank you.
Thanks. I should apologize. We all should apologize to everybody for making this rule to begin with without reaching out to any experts. So we're all to blame, I guess. I'm not taking any comments, Ms. Sangiolo. This one's over. Okay, you can put your hand down. Okay.
I do have one thing I'd like to add, Chair.
Excuse me?
I do have one thing I'd like to add.
Go ahead.
It's relative to process here. So as we do work this forward, you know, as we have for other, you know, when you think about a special permit or a permit application of any kind coming in, there's a number of things that you check to us. You know, they're either required or not required, depending on the permit. just as we do for things like stormwater and drainage and stuff where we don't have the technical expertise, nor do we want to have the technical expertise within the hearing of the special permit. I don't know that it wouldn't be something that could be a standardized question, if you will, to the ISD or someone else that says, is a vibration, study requirement, whatever, applicable to this particular one? And by doing that, recognizing this is something, if this is something that we do have to continue to do, then we should have the capacity somewhere inside to say, this is just a standard question we ask. And, that leaves it out of our hands to try and craft 150 or 200 or whatever it is and say, no, you need one here because it's this type of thing, and rely on the expertise that would then, develop or reside there to do that. So that's just a thought as far as the process goes here.
Councilor Markowitz, that is fantastic. That is an excellent suggestion. The same way that we on this committee do not talk about groundwater and what's going to happen because engineering signs off on that, and that is not on our plate. That is a brilliant suggestion, Ms. Wewell, Mr. Temple. Take that under advisement. Remember that when we're getting to the bottom of this, because asking this committee how far we should go out for vibrations or whether we need it at all is not something that should be under our purview, probably not even planning, who's telling us they don't have the expertise. But maybe that's something in ISD or engineering that we can standardize. Thank you, Councilor Markowitz, for that. Okay, we're going to move on.
Mr. Chair, point of order. I think because this was noticed for a public hearing and we've spoken on it, I think you have to open the public hearing. You can take comment and then close it, but I do think you need to open it.
Okay, we'll open the public hearing, but we won't be taking any comment tonight because we've already held it, and there's just no reason to. I'm just making a judgment there. It's an hour we've been on this, and the end game is holding, so I don't see any reason to take public comment tonight when we're not voting. Okay? Anybody have a problem with that?
Yeah, one thing, Councilor Lipoff, what is the next process in this? Could you just walk me through that? I maybe it was mentioned earlier, but just the 2-second or 1 minute breakdown, because I'm trying to plan as well, and how this will be addressed.
Mr. Chairman, on the public hearing, before Mr. Oliveri jumps in again, on the public hearing, you will have a public hearing at some point, though,
Absolutely.
right?
We just opened it and we're holding it along with the item.
Okay, because I know some people came, I just wanted to clarify that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Public hearing is open. It will stay open until we vote on this, and we haven't. We've held it. So there's no reason to continue to talk about it. Mr. Oliveri, this is new territory with these 3 items. What I can see here is that the committee is looking for some expertise. I would like planning and law to start ruminating on what Councilor Markowitz said, because maybe there's an entity that needs to deal with these on an individual basis and make a determination for ones under 25 units. It's a great suggestion. But Mr. Oliveri, we're going to have planning reach out to some experts and get us a brief, very small, but to tell us who they talk to and what their suggestions are on this, which may include what Councilor Markowitz just talked about, which may be some other entity other than this committee or planning deciding what's appropriate on a case-by-case basis. But we have to talk about that. So I don't know, Mr. Oliveri, the timing on this. And I would get in touch with Ms. Wewell tomorrow or Mr. Temple. Okay?
We will. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Hold on 1 second. No? Well, all 3. Everybody, we opened the public hearing on 197-23, 198-23, and 199-23. We're holding each one. Do we need to take individual votes to hold on each one? You think so? Okay, so the hold we just did was on Hancock Street. I'll take a motion to hold on 198-23. Councilor Markowitz gives hold on 198-23. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? abstentions, it is held. 199-23, motion to hold, Counselor Markowitz. All in favor say
moved.
aye.
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 Opposed, abstentions, they're held. All three are held. Thank you very much. And the public hearings are open on all three. Thank you. 194-23, Naama and Amir Yacobi, request to extend non-conforming FAR at 76 Drumlin Road. Let's hear from planning first.
All right, just give me a moment to share my screen. Let's step here. All right. So hopefully you see this. This is a special permit to construct a sunroom addition at the rear of the dwelling. It's a single family, which will further extend the non-conforming FAR. The relief is shown here. Request to further extend non-conforming FAR. The increase would be from 0.35 to 0.37, where 0.30 is the maximum allowed by right. And that means the dwelling would go from 5,676 to 5,932 square feet, an increase of 256 square feet. When reviewing the request, the council should consider these two criteria: whether that expanded dwelling with an FAR of 0.37 is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of other structures in the neighborhood, and whether that expanded structure would be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming dwelling is to the neighborhood. The context, we see the site here in blue on the east side of Drumlin. You can see the topographical changes in the neighborhood. Here's the site plan. Drumlin Road is to the left. So the proposed sunroom addition is encircled in blue, and the footprint itself is in green. And we can see it's a 16 by 16 square foot addition to the rear of the home. We can see the setbacks are 55.3 feet to the rear and about 28 to the right side setback. Here we see the elevations and two perspectives of the proposed addition. Again, it's made of glass, wall, and ceiling. You can see the three sides. As mentioned before, it would be to the rear of the property. And because it is to the rear of the property, it would not be visible from the street. This is the front facade along Drumlin, and it would in effect be behind that rightmost portion of the home. So again, not visible from the street. That's all planning has, and hopefully can answer any questions the committee might have.
Great, thank you. It's pretty straightforward. If the petitioner is here and would like to speak, if planning has said everything, that's fine. Anybody here for the petitioner?
Yes, this is Amir Yacobi. We have nothing to add, I believe.
Okay, is anything else to add, or is that good?
This is Peter Lavinson, and I think Michael did an excellent job. Thank you very much. I'm with New England Sunrooms, and I think that his presentation was complete.
Great. So are you sitting in one of your sunrooms, or is that a virtual background?
I'm going to leave that to your imagination.
It's very nice. Thank you. Okay. All right. Anybody from the public that wished to speak on this? Do you see anything? Yeah. Can you take down, can you stop sharing, Mr. Gleba? Okay. I do not see anybody from the public. Anybody from the council wish to speak on this? This is my ward. I can't move it, so if somebody else would like to. Councilor Bowman, close the public hearing. Motion to close the public hearing.
Hearing and move approval.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, abstention? Opposed, abstentions? Okay, the public hearing is closed. We have a motion to approve. Can we take a look at a council order?
Just let me do something. Are you seeing?
We're seeing not blown up, but we see the.
Okay. let me
No,
just
no, we don't see the order.
Okay. Let me do something. This is weird. Trying to think. Oh, are you seeing?
There you go. We see findings.
Excellent. Okay. Here we go. These are the proposed findings. Generally, that it's not, that it is consistent with and not in derogation of the size, scale, and design of others in the neighborhood, given that the neighborhood features similar dwellings throughout, and that it would not be substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood, given its size, construction, and limited visibility from nearby properties and/or public rights of way. So those are the proposed findings. And the conditions, the standard 3.
Great. Thank you. No vibration control? Just kidding. All right.
Oh,
Clerk,
well,
please,
okay.
Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bowman,
Aye.
Counselor Downs, Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Markowitz.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Great. Thank you very much. Good luck with your project. Okay. 196-23.
Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Good luck. 196-23, request to expand a non-conforming detached garage at 231-233 Tremont Street. Mr. Gleba, can you give the planning board's report, please?
I will. Let me share the screen again. Oh, I'm sorry. Wait a minute. All right. So hopefully you see the right slide.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. So the request here is to construct a half-story addition to a garage which would extend the non-conforming side setback on an existing detached accessory structure. The half-story addition would increase the garage height by about 10 feet, extending the non-conforming side setback of 3. So the setback is only 3 feet deep. The garage's height would be increased by 10 feet, that is extending the non-conforming side setback upward. The resulting height would be 21.95 feet at the ridge line, which is slightly lower than the maximum 22 feet, which is allowed for sloping roofs on detached accessory structures. The criteria for this one is the extension of the non-conformity, whether the expanded detached accessory structure with that vertically extended non-conforming 3-foot side setback would not be substantially more detrimental to the existing than the existing non-conforming structure is to the neighborhood. Location, north side of Tremont. We can see the parcel in blue. The existing garage to be expanded. It's in the the rear left of the property. Hopefully you see the cursor. The site plan, Tremont is on the bottom of this plan. The principal structure near the center of the lot, and the garage is shown. Again, in the rear left, you have it highlighted in red here. So the footprint would not be changing if this were to be approved. So here are the elevations. The top left would be the facade that faces the street. So that's the front. The back is below it. And the two sides on the right-hand side, those are the gable ends of the new proposed slanted roof that would be facing the property to the left of this property and the rear yard of the subject property. One photo just from the street itself. You can see how the garage is not particularly visible, as it is in the back left of the property. The gable roof behind it is not on this property. That is the property to the rear. So again, there's an existing one-story structure in that back left at the end of the existing driveway. And that just shows its visibility from the street. That's all we have for now, and hopefully you can answer any questions the committee might have.
Thank you. I don't think I mentioned the names of the petitioners, Arto and Victoria Dermavasian. I needed to read that in. Thank you. Okay, the petitioners, anything else to add that hasn't already been said by planning? You're more than welcome to speak or just validate what you've heard.
Well, hello. Thank you, Chairman Lipoff. I'm Ron Jarek, architect representing Arto and his wife.
Thank you. Just a little louder, Mr. Jarek.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm right next to the microphone here. Are you hearing me okay?
Yes, go. Yeah, just speak up a little. Thank you.
All right. Well, we don't disagree with anything that was presented by the planning department. It's perfectly describing the petition. We're seeking to add a second floor or half story to an existing one-story garage structure. And we're here for the two reasons we're here. One is the side yard setback of 3 feet, which is 2 foot less than the required 5 foot setback. And the second is the half story addition, which is expanding a non-conforming use. So beyond that, you've seen the elevations. There's a purpose for expanding the project. I'll let Arto speak to that, but it's simply a way of adding more capacity to the house and its living situation, although there's not living in that particular part of the building. We meet the FAR requirements. We don't exceed the height requirement. We are not exceeding the dormer half-story requirements with the footprint below the half-story. And I would now just say, Arto, if you have some comments on the discussion with your neighbors and also anything that you could add related to the use of the building.
So you guys did a great job. I'm not really sure what to say. I just, I talked to the abutters and I got a lot of support. Everybody was okay with it. I'm not really sure what else I could tell you.
You don't need to say anything else. Thank you. All right. Is there anybody from the public that wishes to speak? Raise your hand. I don't see anybody. Councillor Greenberg.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is in my ward, and I haven't heard any controversy about this project, and it's a minimal project, so I move approval and close the public hearing.
Well, thank you very much. We have a motion to close the public hearing from Councillor Greenberg. If there's no other councillors that want to speak, I don't think there are. Okay, we have a motion to close. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions? The public hearing's closed. We have a motion to approve. Can we take a look at a council order, Mr. Gleba?
Finding the one that it would not be more detrimental, substantially more detrimental than the existing non-conforming structures to the neighborhood, given that the proposed addition would have limited or no visibility from nearby public rights of way. And the conditions, again, the standard three.
Great. Okay. Mr. Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Bowman,
Aye.
Counselor Downs, Counselor Greenberg,
Aye.
Counselor Kelly,
Aye.
Counselor Laredo,
Aye.
Counselor Lipoff,
Aye.
Counselor Lucas,
Aye.
Counselor Markowitz.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Great. Thank you very much. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Last item of the night, 195-23 Clinton Street LLC, request to allow ground floor residential use to allow 3 stories and a 35.3-foot height and to exceed FAR at 20 Clinton Street. We'll hear from Ms. Kemet.
Sure thing. Let me just share my screen. Hopefully everyone can hear me. Just give a shout if you
Yes,
cannot.
we can.
This is petition number 19523 at 20 Clinton Street. The petitioners here are proposing to raise the existing 2-family dwelling on the lot and construct 4 residential units in 2 separate buildings. Because the site is in a business district, relief is required to allow a residential use on the ground floor. It also requires site plan review for development in a business district over 10,000 square feet. Both of the proposed buildings will be 3 stories tall, so a special permit is required to allow for each of the 3-story structures, which will be 35.3 feet tall. The maximum FAR by right is 1, and up to 1.5 is allowed by special permit. The building is proposed at 1.1, so it does require relief. There's also one element of relief required for the project that the petitioner did not initially ask for. The planning department didn't catch it right off the bat, so that has not been advertised for, and that is a request to alter and extend a non-conforming side setback. Because this aspect of relief wasn't included in the public noticing, it will need to be re-noticed before a vote. So our apologies for the oversight on that, and I can explain a bit more about what that consists of in a minute. In reviewing this request, the council should consider whether the site in BU2 is an appropriate location for the proposed 4 residential units in 2 structures with 3 stories and 35.3 feet in height. A ground floor residential use of a floor area ratio of 1.1 with a non-conforming side setback and site plan review for a building with more than 10,000 square feet. Whether the project will not adversely affect the neighborhood, whether the project will not create a nuisance or serious hazard to vehicles or pedestrians, if access to the site over streets is appropriate for the types and number of vehicles involved, and if the proposed increase in floor area ratio is not substantially more detrimental than the existing structure is to the neighborhood. The site is located on Clinton Street. The closest abutters are all residential, with 2 units at 1214 Clinton and 4 units at 2426 Clinton. The site is close to the Nonantum Village Center in an area with mostly single and multifamily residences with some mixed use and commercial structures and open space, and a greater variety of uses the closer you get to the commercial area of Nonantum. The zoning of neighboring properties is BU to the northeast and MR2 to the southwest, including a direct abutter to the site, which is in the MR district. The site consists of a 10,404 square foot lot that has a 2-family house, which was built in the mid-1800s, and a detached garage at the back. The Newton Historical Commission has reviewed the site at a public hearing in February of last year. There was a vote to preferably preserve the home, which did not pass upon a vote. The site is relatively flat with a high point towards the rear of the property and a gradual slope down towards Clinton Street. The property has 2 curb cuts on Clinton Street now. They're both connected to the detached garage at the rear. The curb cut closest to the house is leads to a paved driveway, while the second curb cut, which is to the left in the site plan here, leads to a gravel driveway. There's a chain link fence that runs along the east side of the property and along the sides of the gravel drive, and a fence along portions of the south and western property lines. There are also some retaining walls to either side of the curb cut for the paved driveway and at the back towards the patio, which is behind the dwelling. The existing building height is 28.5 feet, resulting in a side setback requirement of 14.3 feet. Because it's abutting a residential district. So on the side that abuts the residential district, the side setback should be 14.3 feet. While all the other setbacks today are conforming, that one side setback is not conforming because it's 7.2 feet where it should be 14.3. So that was not initially in the zoning review memo. We missed that aspect there. This is the proposed site plan. The petitioner has informed the planning department that there will be a slightly revised site plan submitted, which will establish a different rear boundary line than is shown here. Our understanding is that the revised site plan will not impact the relief needed in terms of setbacks or FAR. It is just a small piece of land that will be I believe it's an easement that will be given to the rear abutter. So that will clarify a boundary line with the rear abutters to the property, but should not impact anything that they need relief for. The petitioners propose to demolish the existing dwelling and the garage and construct 2 structures with 2 dwellings each. So that's a total of 4 residential units, 2 in each building. Each of the buildings will be 3 stories tall with 35.3 feet, where up to 3 stories and 36 feet in height are allowed by special permit. It does need relief for the FAR of 1.1, where up to 1 is allowed by right. In the memo, we erroneously stated that no relief is needed for the setbacks, but there is one setback that does need relief, which we now know. The front setback will remain the same at 13.6 feet, where 13.1 feet is required. The rear setback will decrease from the 21.7 feet it is now to 10.4 feet. The side setback from 1214 Clinton Street will decrease from 74.5 feet to 8.7 feet. And the currently non-conforming side setback from 2426 Clinton Street will increase from 7.2 feet to 7.7. Because the height of the building will be taller at 35.3 feet, the side setback requirement will now be 17.7 feet, which is non-conforming because it abuts that residential district. So the setback will be increasing, but it does need relief to extend and alter the non-conformity. This is how the project will present from Clinton Street. Each of the 2 structures will have a single front entrance and porch facing out on the street. So it will read as having a pedestrian-oriented, more single-family look from the street. One of the curb cuts will be closed, so access for vehicles will be consolidated into that one curb cut, which is 18 feet wide, leading to a paved driveway in between the 2 buildings. So the driveway is shared, and the curb cut is 18 feet wide. Each unit has 3 bedrooms and a flexible den/office space. The units vary just a little bit in terms of the size and layout, but the layouts and sizes are all roughly the same. And they're each approximately 2,800 square feet. Altogether, there's 11,294 gross square feet in the project, including the garage space, and there are no basements proposed. Each unit has a private patio, porch, balcony, and an attached garage with 2 parking spaces, all of which are accessible from that shared driveway. A private balcony is located over each garage, facing that inner courtyard parking. The garages all face each other, not out on abutting homes. This is the view from the side. So on either side, the abutters on Clinton Street will see a site similar to this. The landscape plan shows a 6-foot tall solid fence along the rear property line and portions of the east and west, which transitions down to 4 feet tall, closer to Clinton Street. So it will go down a bit towards the street. The existing maple trees along Clinton will be retained, and an arborvitae hedge will be installed along the rear property line as screening for those rear abutters. There's also a variety of plants, shrubs, and perennials that are proposed along the sides of the property, near the patio spaces and the front of the building. And we noted in our memo, but just another reminder to the petitioner, that when they apply for a tree permit, they'll need to note the location and size of any existing trees that are to be removed, because that will be required for that approval. Overall, the department believes this is an appropriate location for the project. This will be one of the only 3-story buildings on Clinton Street, and it does exceed the FAR by about 800, 900 square feet. The lot is larger than several others in the area that have multifamily housing, and the lot area per unit does exceed what's required. So in that way, it seems appropriate to have this project here. And though the property is in a business district, the area has a number of residential buildings that don't have retail uses on the ground floor. Okay, that's it from me. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Bookbinder?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, other counselors. For the record, Stephen Bookbinder, attorney with the law firm of Schlesinger and Bookbinder, with offices at 1200 Walnut Street in Newton Highlands. And I'm here this evening on behalf of the petitioner, 20 Clinton Street LLC, whose manager, Omri Kashani, is here with us tonight. Ms. Kemet did a great job, I believe, in describing the site and the nature of the relief sought, and I just want to touch upon a few other items. A great deal of care and attention has gone into this project. We started many, many months ago, and I think that the result that you see tonight is an improvement, which I'll get into. I do think it's important to keep in mind that this property is located in a Business 2 zone, and as such, it could be developed by right with a commercial use on the ground floor and residential units above it. Our architect, John Pears, actually produced a plan, a by right plan for the property, which had a small retail space of 300 square feet on the first floor, the units above it, and 12 parking stalls at grade. Although the by right option would have been easier in many respects for Mr. Kashani, he never really liked that project. He much preferred the project we're presenting this evening. And we have shared it with the neighborhood, and I think the majority of the neighborhood would agree with that. The original design, which we filed with the city, provided for 4 4-bedroom units. After some feedback from the Ward 1 councilors and neighbors, we eliminated one of the bedrooms, so they're now 3-bedroom units. We also eliminated the basement, so we made the units smaller. We held 2 very well-attended community meetings at the Social Club on Bridge Street in Nonantum to invite community feedback. Both were well-attended by about 15 to 20 individuals. The first occurred on January 30th of this year. The second one was on February 23rd. One or more of the Ward 1 councilors attended each of these meetings. I do note that the other 2 ward councilors, Ms. Leary and Mr. Oliver, I believe, are on with us virtually, and as well as Councilor Greenberg. Mr. Chairman, as a result of those meetings, we then made further changes to the project. Specifically, we reduced the length of the building by 4 feet 8 inches in order to increase the rear setback. That was something that was very important to Rose and Dana Flynn, who lived just behind us, and Mr. Pears was able to make that change. We reduced the entire gross floor area by 717 square feet in connection with therewith. We put more landscaping along the rear property line. We were able to preserve 2 street trees by angling the entrance driveway slightly, which we discussed with Mr. Welch. And we reoriented the proposed balconies. Originally, they were facing outward, overlooking the neighbors. The neighbors asked us to please put them on the interior courtyard for privacy purposes, which we did. I do want to emphasize a point which Ms. Kemet made, which was that the lot area per unit for this project is 2,601 square feet, where 1,200 square feet is required. So we think from a density point of view, it's reasonable. And again, I would note that our FAR, we do need a waiver to go above 1.0. We're at 1.1. 1.5 is allowed by special permit. Now, we spent a lot of time trying to resolve some issues with 3 of our neighbors, and I want to thank them because they were extremely cooperative, and I think we worked in a joint fashion to try to let this project happen. Our neighbors immediately to the left, as you're looking at the site with your back to Clinton Street at 1214 Clinton, there's currently a fence, and they believe that they own the property on their side of the fence. Actually, the survey shows that they don't. We actually own about 5 feet of land they thought was theirs. We've granted them an easement. They were at my office today. We executed the easement. We're giving them that land in perpetuity at no compensation, and that was the right thing to do. Additionally, we have another set of very nice neighbors at 13R Lincoln Road, and they had been using some property for an expansion of their driveway and a little bit behind their house. Not a lot of land, but we also gave them an easement. They came over today and executed an easement agreement, again, without compensation. We had a tough issue with the Flynn's, who were very, very nice. And the issue was this. We had a survey done in 2022, and it showed our rear property line. When the Flynn's came over to my office about a month ago and they brought their deed, it turns out that the 2 deeds differed. And there was a discrepancy of about 8 inches, along the rear property line. We offered them an easement. They really weren't comfortable with the easement. And I have to thank Mark Caggiano, who is over at the church in Chestnut Hill, where Dana works. And Mark is an attorney by training. And he gave me a call and he explained the situation. And, he said, Steve, is there any way that you can just, establish the boundary line and basically give this land or resolve this land? It's not a lot of land, but in favor of the Flynn's. And I said, let me just check and make sure it doesn't impact our FAR. And John Pears ran the numbers. It works fine. It doesn't change the FAR at all. So we have signed an agreement with the Flynn's. They were at my office yesterday, and we've agreed to give them that land, or I should say, or ratify that the land they thought they owned is their land. Now, we do need to get you an engineered boundary line plan, which we will have by the next time we come back. We couldn't get it for today. One more thing on the side setback. I know Ms. Kemet on a couple of occasions apologized. There's no apology necessary. Our office missed it. It seems like everybody missed it. And just by chance, Mr. Chairman, my client and John Pears, the architect, went over to City Hall yesterday afternoon just to have a discussion with Buddy Lamplaw at ISD just about the building permit process. And it was actually Buddy who said, you better check the side setback. I learned about it first thing this morning. Franklin and I talked, and we said, this is a problem. So we let Kat know, we let Jonah know. We've submitted a letter to our new committee clerk, who I welcome, and we've asked for that relief. We're going to republish. We will pay for the publishing, and hopefully that will be fine by the time we come back. I do want to thank the neighborhood again, because they're very cooperative. I know that one member, Anthony Pellegrini's here tonight, and folks were very hospitable and very welcoming to my client, and that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. It seems like you've done a lot of work up front, doing the right thing, talking to the neighborhood. I appreciate you giving us the evolution of this project to show how it's changed up until this point. That was very useful. Okay, do we have anybody from the public that wishes to speak? Mr. Pellegrini, come on up.
Anthony Pellegrini, live at 56 Clinton Street, Mass. I'm about 6 houses away, and conversing with the immediate butters and stuff like that. I found out today that they're very happy with their agreements for the side sets in the back set, And I was really happy with that because, you know, it's not easy. But from what could have been there, the by right, and what is there now, those houses actually look like my house on Clinton Street. So, and mine's a little bigger, but, excuse me, my sister's house. But we're really happy, and I've talked to a lot of, and Terry Sorrow, she was happy. I talked to her today. Unfortunately, she had an accident today. She fell getting out of her shower and she broke her arm.
Oh, no.
So she's supposed to go to Wyoming for a wedding for her grandson, but I don't know if she's going. But we're really happy in the neighborhood. That middle driveway, it's all parking on one side now. It opens up a lot more parking. So, you know, people across the street are happy, so you can get a couple more cars there. And that was the idea of parking on one side. So overall, we're greatly appreciative of what they've done.
Thank you for your input, and come on up. And Terry, if you're listening, or anybody else that is going to be speaking with her, we are so sorry to hear about your fall. I know you were looking forward to that wedding, and I hope you still can go.
Thank you. Mr. Pellegrini reminded me of one thing I meant to say. At the community meeting, and I think Councilor Bowman will appreciate this, Councilors Greenberg and Leary both asked the question, do you need 2-car garages? Could we live with 1-car garages? It was unanimous by everyone in the room, and I think Mr. Pellegrini will confirm, all of the neighbors really wanted the 2-car garages. And I think, Mr. Chairman, in this instance, it's appropriate because these really are family units. They're 3-bedroom units. I think if they were 1 or even 2-bedroom units, you could live with 1 space, but I think that to the extent people aren't parking on site, they would have to go to the neighborhood streets. Thank you.
I got it. Thank you very much. Anybody else from the public? I do not see anybody. Councilor Greenberg.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. As the petitioner noted, a lot of work was done on this project prior to this presentation, and I really commend him and the owner of the property working so hard with the neighbors to get agreements and addressing their concerns. It was really important to get that work done before we came here tonight. And I understand we need to put this on hold because of the new relief being asked.
Yes, we will not be voting on this tonight because it has to be renoticed, but I'm happy to go through the full process. Councilor Laredo.
Thank you. I'll be brief. I want to just publicly thank the petitioner and his council for taking such time to talk to the neighbors and try to address their individual concerns. As he knows, that's exactly what we want in the land use process, for folks to show up here having done their homework, having talked to the neighbors, making it a better project than it would be by right. And by all accounts, that's been done, which I think is excellent. I do have a question for Ms. Wewell, and if you can't answer it this evening, that's fine. But since we are in the process of considering our new zoning code, I would like to know whether this project, as originally proposed, could have been done by right, and or the project as currently proposed could have been done by right. And I ask that because clearly the project as originally proposed was not a good project. The one that's before us now is much better. I'm sure you do not have the answer this evening, but since we are coming back with this one, if you could inquire of Ms. Kyra or others on her team and have an answer to us, I think that'd be quite informative. With that, I'm all set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Laredo. Councilor Bowman.
I will also be brief. I just also want to commend the petitioner for looking into 2 items that I asked them to look into, is what it would take to adapt a unit to be fully accessible, and they were able to give me an answer, which involved being able to put an elevator inside the garage, and then with the layout, it would work pretty well to have the unit be accessible, which was quite good to hear. Not cheap, but not having to rebuild the entire building, because I think this is a very appropriate place maybe for somebody who's older and might need access to that. And they also looked at the driveway width. I know we don't want to talk about driveway widths, but confirmed with the fire department that it was okay to just scooch it down 2 more feet to 18 feet. So it would be a little more of a residential width, closer to being a residential width than a commercial width. So I appreciate their efforts to do that. Thank you.
Sure, I think cars coming and going can still get by each other, so that'll be okay, right? Okay. All right, anybody else? Okay, I do not see anybody else. No other questions? Look at that. Do I have a motion? Councilor Greenberg?
Motion to hold.
Motion to close the public hearing and motion to
Yeah.
approve? Motion to close the public.
Back on this.
Oh, wait, there is no, yeah, excuse,
Motion to hold.
what am I doing? Just motion to hold, you're right. I'm on autopilot. This is what we always do. We have a motion to hold. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. It is held until you bring it back next time. It felt so final, didn't it? Okay. All right. With that, we conclude our business. Thank you, everybody.